I'm really pleased to introduce to you in our live breakout session. This is Gabby, Reece, and Laird Hamilton from their home in Malibu. You guys in Malibu this morning?
Hi.
And we just got a chance to chat a little bit because we had to get a little bit of non-sea change stuff covered, which was there's a giant south swell that we all got to see break at Chopu in Tahiti a few days ago. So I just talked to Laird and Gabby about my concern about that swell hitting California and impacting their ability to be here today. So I just want to say an extra special thank you. I know there's a lot of distractions, and I know that there's a strong interest right now in probably being out riding waves from the swell that's now starting to hit Southern California. So Laird just shared with me that he got a little bit of a surf in this morning already. Maybe you can start off by just telling us a little bit about what you saw, how the waves were, and what the conditions look like out there.
Well, yesterday, we had a little storm front that came through, so we had some rain, and it was kind of dreary. And so to wake up this morning, unfortunately, I never sleep that well the night before a swell. I was probably up at, I thought 3 was okay. When the clock says anything with 3 on it, I'm not able to get up. At 4:45, I decided that I could probably get up at that time. It was a beautiful, clear morning, and I could already see whitewater by 5 something. So I knew that something was going to be happening. It was going to be pretty out there, and just to be in the ocean, and it's all about that. It's really, waves are just excuses to be in the ocean. So I had an excuse to be in the ocean, but that was after I brought our youngest daughter to school, and pushed her off into her world.
Awesome. Well, that's a good start to the day. I do. So one of the things I want to focus on with you two during this talk is this concept of relationships, and primarily all the different facets of relationships that the two of you have in both your professional life, your personal life, your work life, your play life, and family life. But let's just start. I'd love to just get a little bit of an idea of your relationship, particularly to the ocean, and how that sort of formed your decision-making around the products you create, the lifestyle you live, and the relationship you have with one another.
Well, I can say that I think, like, if you want to take, for example, even Laird SuperFood, Laird's desire to spend as much time performing at a high level in the ocean per session, if you back that into him concocting things on land in the kitchen to support him on that quest, I actually think that that's a real genesis for, hey, like, how can I be out there with, more energy and more time? So that's one thing. But I just think that it's also, it holds your values and what you really hold as precious. So it's not just, okay, what can we acquire and a bunch of zeros, but you realize your relationships, the nature, giving you such an incredible gift. So if you do go into business, for example, and you can do it more responsibly because you have been informed by that environment, I think you take that opportunity for sure.
And both Gabby and I have our upbringings have made us really connected to the ocean, her in her way. When I saw her swim the first time, I was like, I'm in love, it was so, but the truth is that our upbringings have been connected to nature. And I think the influence that the ocean has had on both of us, obviously, my relationship with the ocean influenced Gabby. Gabby's relationship with the ocean influenced me, but I think our connectedness to nature, that we're connected to nature, and it influences our behavior and our outlooks and our values and everything we do. And because of, when you wait for waves and you're relying on conditions and all of these things, I think that helps steer you when you get into business, when you get into a relationship. You're going to get caught in riptides and you're going to get sucked out to sea, but you're going to make it back to shore. And these are all metaphors that you use in your life. And so I would say that all of that has had a huge impact on all of our values and our behaviors with each other, and in our business. I always say that life is a formulaic process, and there's a formula, And the formula to success, no matter what it is pretty similar. You just throw, what's the genre? You just throw something else in there. When you can do something that's difficult and go through the process to I wouldn't say master, but at times master it, you can implement that anywhere. You can just get the next thing up and stick that structure into it. And you're at the worst, you're gonna learn.
Exactly. I know for myself, like when I spend time on the water, whether it's if it's paddling or if it's wind or whatever it is, there's a process that happens where your mind opens up to sort of new perspective, new ideas. And a lot of times when I come off the water, I realize like a consciousness enters my mind where I'm thinking about business, right? Because Roxanne and I are serial entrepreneurs. We've started multiple businesses here in Vermont. There's always inputs coming into my head constantly around things that need to evolve or things we need to do. But the time that I spend on the water really gives me an opportunity, and it's a kind of a cliche, right? But this idea of unplugging, but really being in nature.
Yes.
There are things that come to mind about business life or whatever it may be that I don't think would have come into my consciousness with the distractions of being on land, with the distractions of being surrounded by all these inputs. But the idea of getting out into nature really allows me to see things differently. And I come off the water with literally ideas that I have to write down right away because I'm afraid I'm going to forget about them. Are there times that this has happened to either of you where you've had that experience or connection with nature that's allowed you to see things that maybe you wouldn't have seen otherwise?
Yeah.
Well, I think nature has inspired Laird many times. Whether it's to be, how can I be involved in a bigger way? Whether it's creating different forms of way to connect to nature. And I think for me personally, it's interesting. I read a book a few months ago called The Comfort Crisis, and Michael Easter talks about boredom, how important boredom is, which really, not that in nature you're bored, but there is that kind of stripped away stillness, and that's where all this creativity comes from. And that chance to check in with yourself and go, well, what do I like and what do I want? What does that look like to me? Because I think this notion, and I can Laird talk to it deeper, is, well, what is success really to you as a person? What really makes you feel good? And versus what the world is always telling you about success. And nature provides this moment where you go, hey, this makes me feel excited and switched on, and that opportunity.
Well, and I totally agree. And I think another piece to that is that it also puts in perspective our position, right? So you're in nature and you don't get caught up in thinking that maybe you're more than you are or less than you are, or again, it affects your values, but it also affects your position, that you're kind of like, oh yeah, okay, I'm maybe less significant than I wish I was, or something like that. But that's a beautiful place to create from, right? If I'm starting in this kind of, I would say, humble position, then I can come into it again, boredom. But boredom, if you're bored, there's some humility in boredom as well. So there's some certain humbleness that boredom means, hey, I'm bored. Like that. So there's a vulnerability, and I think that's a good position to come from. That's an honest position to come from, and that's a natural position to come from. I think all the things that have happened to our species have come from that position. And then as we get away from that position, we lose some of those natural skills. And the ocean is the most conductive substance on Earth. I mean, it's charged with a certain amount of energy. Conductive means that sound waves travel through it. Whales can talk to each other from thousands of miles. I mean, there's some stuff going on there that we don't even have the science that. But like you said, you come back and you're like, hey, I got to write that stuff down, because my consciousness was clear enough to allow some stuff to come in. And I think that's what a relationship with nature does. And I think that we all need it in our own forms, whatever it is. And part of it can just be observation of it. Like, there's a sunset, there's a sunrise, there is beauty in creation, in nature. Now we can start from there. Like if the beauty of nature doesn't spark your imagination, I don't know what does or what can.
Exactly. And so case in point, right? You're out there this morning knowing you've got this on your docket later today, but that connection and achieving that balance, I think, is really important. And I think it's more and more difficult for people to do, because a lot of people, right, wake up with the anxiety of the task list ahead of them for the day. And what's easy for them to give up on is the time they really owe to themselves to make sure that they're healthy. And you don't become healthier by working more. You become healthier by making sure you create clear separation between work and your own health. And right now, like right outside this building, I'm staring at Lake Champlain. You know, we had this fortunate opportunity to create a work environment that is steps away from the water. And what that really allows people to do, and even with it being that close, we really need to make a conscious effort to encourage people to put the pens down, drop the pencils, close the laptop, get outside, get out on the water. We've got everything you need, from instruction to people to gear to everything right there. It's that turnkey. But it's so easy for people to forget that is an important part of their life. When they come off the water, no one comes off the water going, man, I wish I'd spent that time getting more work done, because I'd be that much further ahead in productivity, right?
We're both a good version of that. I fight that more. Laird is way smarter in that way, constantly.
Well, and I'm also her partner in that, where I'll be like, hey, you know, she'll be like, hey, don't forget, you got that thing at 11:15, and then I'll be like, hey, don't forget, there's a beautiful sunset. Let's go look at it. So again, that's where the teamwork. It's a necessity on both sides, because had I not made the 11:15 appointment, I might not have the luxury to be able to go watch the sunset. So that's where we work together in that reminder. Each one reminding the other one, but having it's a necessity to have. It brings a certain stillness too in the clutter and the chaos of the bombardment that we're in. We're getting bombarded, especially with all of these instruments that we have and all of this information. You know, I watch my daughter, and she's so bombarded all day long with, in a way, a lot of it is almost like the brain is distracted to the point where it's not even it can't even freely move. The brain can't freely think, because there's no. It's just it's absorbing the whole time. It can't put out. And so
it's that hard focus that they talk about versus soft focus.
Right.
When you go out and paddle, you get to have soft focus. When you're looking at your devices or computer, you're always in hard focus, and it's tough on you for sure.
Yeah. So Gabby, you have a ton of stuff going on, right? You're running a podcast, you're XPT, you're Laird SuperFoods, you've got
mom.
Kids, you've got kids, you've got family. I mean, what is your secret? Any one of those could be a single full-time job. It could occupy 100% of your time. What would you tell people? What's your secret to time management and managing sort of either the chaos or stress of that, and trying to make sure that you don't implode with all the different things that are going on, plus the things that you're about to start now that we don't even know about, the next thing you're going to do? How do you create time management in your life to be able to balance all of that?
Well, on a superficial level, I write everything down. A lot of people keep it in their electronical device. I also I write it down, because then I also have a sense of it. I try to space out weeks, because when I can see it, I go like, it's too big, it's too busy here, it's too nutty, I gotta lighten it or figure out a way. And then, quite frankly, I think I'm well aware, like in perspective of, I chose this. I chose to be in a relationship. I chose to take on these ventures. I chose to be a parent. And so really it's when you first take the power and realizing that it's like, this was my choice. And also the real gift and opportunity of being able to pursue things. Yes, they're hard at times, but they are fulfilling and they are creative and they are lucrative and they're all the things. So I think about people who are having to pursue and do jobs to keep the lights on that they don't like. That for me has a level of stress that would be way harder on me. And if just say from another kind of logistical point of view, what I do is I try to look at what has to get done. What do they say have to, should, and want, right? Have that order.
Mhm.
And then I actually try to flip it. So I only see, for the most part, kind of one thing, the thing I'm dealing with in this hour to hour and that hours, instead of everything all at once. But by the way, I had I cried for 5 minutes yesterday. It doesn't happen often. I have a tendency to be pretty buttoned up, but also it's recognizing how you're feeling and saying like, oh, I feel really bumpy, or this feels overwhelming, and then getting on with it. And lastly, I really am diligent about taking care of myself, which allows me to fortify to manage all those things better.
Yeah.
Not
train
perfect.
every day.
Yeah.
Train every single day.
Yeah.
Pretty much train diligently, putting time into the system, getting good sleep, eating well, and like I said, and Gabby talks about it, when people talk about, well, the time, I don't have time to get the thing. I mean, listen, you can do a heck of a workout in 5 minutes. Just try to hold your breath for 5 minutes. That's as much of a workout as anybody needs. Like, so you can do the time, but you can't make it an option, right? So these aren't options. We don't say, well, we have an option to work out or not today. No, we're working out every day, like we're brushing our teeth, like we're sleeping, like we're like all of these things, and giving it the priority because we respect it and know the importance. And so, and I think that's a piece of that, that allows her to do her. And I'm coming a little bit more from, I have the luxury partially because of our teamwork, and it frees me up, and she knows it, and that's how she helps me free me up to be a little more spontaneous, because I can look out the window and go, oh, the surf giant today, or something calling me, and I'm able to, get a window to go take advantage of that. And she tries to save me from a lot of the, of the pending things that are there, because, in my world, if you just put a day on a calendar, that's going to be the day the waves come, and it can be 6 months.
Like today.
Like 6 months out. You can put 6 months out. You go on that day, and I just know already. Go, is there something on the calendar for this day? She goes, yeah. I go, there's going to be some surf. There's going to be something that I want to do other than that.
I think something important too for people when you're working with someone or you're in a romantic relationship, the attribute
we're in a romantic.
We are.
Okay.
The attributes that Laird possesses that I don't, let's say, what I've learned, and you learn this in work, is if you're working with somebody that has these attributes you don't, how do you actually create an environment for them to keep doing that? Because you'll benefit, right? Like I say so many times, the amount of energy or creativity that Laird has, I draft off that behind. Or Laird pulls me to center when he goes, hey, get off your device. And so I just also want to say, from an entrepreneurial point of view, when you work with somebody, a lot of people take ventures on together, try to keep feeding those things, especially if they're different than yours. Don't make them become you. Don't allow the business to squish that part of them. Because there's all this protocol and things that happen, especially as your businesses become more successful or it takes whatever. Keep finding the ways to protect those things in each other and the other people you either live and love or work with, or both.
I mean, we built a couple houses together with the years that we've been together, and that's a business. That's a very stressful thing. That destroys relationships. And again, but in that process, you really learn the strengths. Don't battle over something that one person has either a real opinion about or they're really skilled at. Don't make that part of, know your strengths. Like in our relationship, like I deal with certain things that she's, if there's carnage, you call me. Like if there's a flood or a fire or something broken or there's something going on, call in the first responder. And as the hammer and the consistent mechanism that keeps the machine going, call her. I mean, it's like and knowing your strength and knowing when to step out and when to step in. I think that's and it doesn't always. I mean, you're stepping on each other's toes, and that's just part of the thing. But knowing how that works, the ebb and the flow of that, and that's in business. It's all about that. Right? It's all about supporting people that are, and then knowing when to step in.
And we know you have a lot of people interested in entrepreneurship there.
Yeah.
If there's things specifically you want to ask, go for it.
Well, yeah, one of the questions that just popped in was, an earlier question was kind of talking about meditation and whether either of you use meditation to help sort of center you or help you kind of think through the challenges of your day in different ways or different forms.
Well, Laird will do a breathing practice, and it's very dynamic. And for me personally, I always say I have an active meditation. Yeah. So anytime I'm by myself driving in the car or taking a shower, let's say, I will do a check-in for sure. As far as sitting, I think I should do more of. Like I have friends that start their day with a seated, like straight up 15-minute meditation. I think that's beautiful. I think a lot of people don't have time for that. So those are the ways that we do that.
Yeah, and I think we have, in a way, we have benefited from certain activities and things that we do on a regular basis that bring us a meditative state. And again, when you talk about flow state, we talk about meditation, we talk about visualization. I think that everybody always thinks that you need to be still and sitting in a corner. And I think there's one aspect to that, but I think there's some real in movement, especially when you're doing, whether it's a run or a ride or a swim or something, when you're in that state of mind that I think that for us, that's our usage of that mechanism, that we're using the same mechanism. If you hooked us up and you said, okay, when are you getting this kind of state of mind, we're getting it through motion, and I think I've always done that because people ask me about meditation a lot, and I'm like, yeah, I think we're highly meditative. I mean, I know I am.
Certainly being on the water, right? So being on the water, foiling on a giant wave, that's got to be meditative. I mean, the fact of like being in that moment, being that present, being that hyper focused at that second in time or that moment in time. Yeah.
You'd have to be highly skilled. You'd have to be meditating for 30, 40 years and be an expert to really get to that state of separation, right? So it actually comes pretty easy. You just have to endanger your life, and that seems to do it quite well. Do something life-threatening, and you'll get.
It just takes 30 or 40 years. Tell us a little bit. I know that some of these people want to talk about or just hear a little summary about scaling your business, right? So we understand that these formulas that came out of Laird SuperFoods was really derived and designed and invented and created out of your kitchen, right? This is out of need and necessity to train, to perform, and so on. And then the idea was formed like, hey, this is something that other people could need and could use. What was the beginning? What was like the beginning sort of process that allowed you to start to commercialize this?
Well, I was sharing the recipes with friends. One of the friends was a startup expert, somebody who was really good at startups. And it was a friend that I had been working on another project with, and I shared the recipe with him, and he was one of a long line of people that I had shared the recipes with that had really benefited from it. And he's like, "What is this stuff? What's it doing to me?" And I explained to him the whole process and the functional ingredients and just how it was affecting him and what was going on. And he was like, "Well, we got to try to make something out of this." And so it was like, okay, well, let's try to make a powdered version so we can share it with more people. And I think the third rendition of the powdered formula of my recipe was the original creamer. And it was like, okay, well, start selling that online to people that knew that knew us and were, that knew our work.
We joked that we ran through our audience very quickly.
Yeah.
But I think there's something key about that it came from an authentic thing that Laird was doing for many years, but it actually took an outside person who saw the value and saw that it could be shared with other people. Right. There was something interesting in that. Maybe that would be harder to recognize from the inside out. And then the second part of that was the online. Part of the business's overall success and the fact that it is grown the way it has was because we were native digital, and that really worked in our favor. And listen, we've had, flat businesses, we failed. And then, this was also kind of the unicorn, if you will. Yeah,
and we've had a loyal following, so we've been able to try other recipes with Laird Superfood customers and get feedback. And so that the native online platform is a very useful to get to figure out what products are great, and then go into retail. And so like Gabby said, we've done a lot of these different projects, and each one has a different characteristics, and some you just always are running into a wall, and some just flow more freely. And so this one's had the stars aligned on it for quite a while.
We learned a lot. The other founder is Paul Hodge, who is the active CEO. And the other thing that we learned in depth from him was the importance of the culture of the company. He's like, listen, I've seen incredible companies that their culture was inconsistent or went awry, and it ruined the business. And so the other thing that he implemented really early on was the culture. And then the second thing was 2.5 years in, we got the factory.
Yeah.
So it was not about having a virtual company or co-packing. Everything that we can do ourselves, and that is also a really important part of the success of this business.
Yeah, and the values are guiding rails. We have certain values that are corporate values that guide us and keep us on track, and they don't allow us to deviate, which is really important, especially as you're trying to grow and make new stuff, and especially in something like, a product that you consume, it'd be easy to go, well, we'll just use some of this. Yeah, don't worry about that, or just use some of that, and that'll be cheaper, or that'll be better. And in a way, we have certain guardrails that don't allow us to go off track, which it just makes decision making better, because it just kind of takes away some of the things that could lead you astray.
And it also goes back to the original thing you were talking about in nature, or being in nature. Things are challenging, and things take time. And to Laird's point about having these very strict bumpers about what ingredients we're going to use, or shipping, and all these things that you're trying to consider in your ESG part, is it's not easy. You're not looking to make it easier. If you do it to the best of your ability, right, the information that you have at that moment, it will be best. Yeah. And so I think that learning that over and over through time, through athletics, through nature, through all of that, you really believe that even when you're getting your neck squeezed, and it's challenging.
Yeah, and we're we have a mission, right? We have a mission, which is we want to get people things that they need. Like we have a real objective behind it, which is, hey, people need good nutrients, and we need to get it to them. And so we need to make it affordable, because people that need it probably can't afford it as well as people that can afford it probably have it. So we're trying, but still we have to provide them with this highest quality ingredients that we can to get them what we need. So there within lies the battle, right? But we have a real, we have a mission. Like, this is a real mission. We're mission driven. It's not just like, we're going to make some good food and you're going to love it and it's going to be great. We'll have a big business. Right. No, we have an objective, and that's another thing that's giving us purpose, and it's definitely gonna make us, hungry. We're gonna be hungry to make this thing work. We're gonna be like, okay, hey, we need to fulfill this task, and I always talk about ideas, the company's idea, the idea, the company's success is just a reflection of the idea. At a certain point, what's the idea? And you look at any great company, you still have to have an incredible business, of course, because that's the only way you can survive. But you have to have an idea to start, and then grow, and then how big is that? How big is that idea? And we believe that the idea that people need, that better food is better you, we believe that's a big idea. That's a very, very big idea that touches everyone. So that's what has us passionate about this. Just like we believe in XPT and the health of it, we believe that people doing activities in nature, all of these things are connected to our values, and so it's easy for us to.
And that's what's important for any other entrepreneur, is it has to be first and foremost true to them.
Right.
Also different, and that's what's beautiful, but they can bring things to market that we couldn't, because they're turned on or switched on to something, and I think that's really important too.
And look at all the great ones. Look at all the great ones, and look at the passion that they have about their beliefs and their things that they're doing. Any real company all stems from that real passion, that real belief, that real idea.
I love it. Yeah, and like you said, you have to believe in it, and if you do, it becomes with passion behind the project. There's an intense amount of authenticity and commitment, and people recognize that. Consumers certainly recognize that. And one of the things that was really interesting to me about the company was the decision to base it out of Sisters, Oregon, right? Which, we live in a small city. This is Burlington, Vermont, so we're in a small city. This Hula facility is really an economic driver for Burlington, and the basis for why we built this. This is not a self-serving project. This is a community development project. We did this for the purpose of helping to create economic stability in this area by growing jobs, by building a facility that will allow us to attract people, attract companies, attract the types of jobs that we knew would help sustain the economic future of the area. And in learning about what you guys have done and placing this company in Sisters, Oregon, I feel like there's a really interesting parallel there between this place and what you've done. And what have you seen as a result of the company being in there in terms of the prosperity of what's happening in that state, in that town?
Well, listen, Sisters, there wasn't a lot. It was a vacation similar to Hawaii, actually, a lot like what we have in Hawaii, where you become a seasonal town and you're really reliant on that seasonal business. Okay, summertime, your retail stores and restaurants, the thing, but it's real, and then all of a sudden it just it dies off on the off season, and so it's a difficult thing for people to have families. It's hard to raise a family waiting on tables and working in a restaurant or working in a gift shop. These are, you do, but both people have to work all the time, all day, and then if it's off season, so we know, and also who you attract. Like, where is it? So you're going to attract a certain type of individual. And that's what Gabby was talking about, the culture. When you have people that want to live in that environment and bike and ski and river raft and do all this stuff that's there, you're going to attract a certain type of people that are going to work in the company, and the company's going to have that culture that the environment is reflective of it. It's hard to go, hey, we're going to have this active culture, but we're going to be in like downtown somewhere. It's going to be hard.
Yeah. Well, it plays to the lifestyle of what you guys have created and everything you've done. So, thank you, you two.
We listen. One thing about Laird and I is I think we're Laird differently. I think Laird has legitimate brilliance in some real ways, but what people have to understand is that we are just been consistently dedicated to these pursuits, and and learned from mistakes, and sometimes you don't know how it's going to work out. But it does work out, and it oftentimes looks different than what you thought. And I just want to encourage people that if they have a pursuit or they are thinking of a pursuit or they're in the middle of it, that, just remember that and that we wish everyone well. And
don't be discouraged. Don't be discouraged, because it's, there's a great entrepreneur woman that they asked her, if she had a great idea, what would she do? And she said, I wouldn't tell anybody for a year. And they're like, well, why not? And she goes, because they discourage you. So, I think that we're hard to discourage. And, we've been doing this when we didn't get anything from it. And then we do it when we get something from it. And then we keep doing it and we don't get anything from it. And we keep doing it and we get something from it. So I think it's, it's just that whole thing. You got to just hang in there. And you have to believe. Like if you don't believe, then there's nowhere to go. So if you got to meditate, if you got to go out and ride a wave, or you got to swim in the pool, or make a list, or get everything all calculated, whatever you got to do to get it, we got to get to that. We got to stay in the thing that you can believe it's possible, because without that, there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, and that's why the world needs visionaries, right? You guys are visionaries. The visionaries believe, and the visionaries don't get discouraged. And the visionaries are eternal optimists. And they're always going to find a way. They're going to design their way out of any sort of obstacles or problems that come up. And it's kind of a blessing for anyone that has that sort of trait or capability. It's a much more fruitful life.
Yeah. It's a big responsibility.
It's a lot of responsibility, right? But you guys are capable of carrying that and more. So I have no doubt.
We'll keep working on it. We'll keep trying our best.
Trying our best.
Well done. Thank you, you two. This has been really fun. Thanks for the time. Looking forward to following up really soon.
Get out on the water.
You too, both of you. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Aloha.